Valentine slowly opened her eyes and quickly shut them as an overpowering, throbbing pain in her skull overwhelmed her senses. She tried again to open her eyes, this time with success. Everything was fuzzy, and Valentine could see the stars dancing in her field of vision. She remembered the pod crashing into her home. Then something occurred to her. Without a second thought, Valentine struggled to her knees and crawled quickly behind the dumpster. Even in her confused and groggy state, she realized that if a drop pod hits, chances are there's going to be someone in it. She peeked around the corner of the trash dumpster. Among the wreckage stood 4 women and one giant of a man. He was easily 6.5 feet tall, with bulging muscles all over his body. Upper body naked save for a flak vest, he appeared to be speaking to something at his feet. He reached down and grabbed whatever he was talking to and hauled it up to eye level. It was Valentine's father. The giant was holding him in the air by his neck as he struggled to speak. The giant was apparently losing his temper with her father and started shouting, "I'll ask you one last time, Brooke. Where is she?" Valentine's father struggled to reply by shouting in kind, I told you I don't know." One of the women spoke up. "Let him go, Marius. If he doesn't want to tell us where she is, then we won't have any use for him. Besides, she can't have gotten far." They must be talking about me, Valentine thought. Suddenly there was a sickening crunch on the brick wall behind her and a thump as her father's broken body hit the ground next to her. She couldn't suppress a scream as she watched blood seep from her father's skull, which was cracked open like an egg. Somehow her father was still alive and managed to look at Valentine and gurgle, "Run!" He gave one final death rattle and breathed his last. All 5 of the invaders heard her scream and were already halfway to the dumpster when Valentine finally pulled herself together and forced her limbs to move. She shot out from behind the dumpster like a bullet from a sling. It was now that Valentine fully appreciated all of her training in long-distance endurance running that her parents insisted she take to combat her asthma. Within 30 seconds, she had put a considerable distance between herself and her hiding place. Valentine ran and didn't bother to look back to check if she was being followed. Every breath was a choked sob as she wept for her father. She ran for what seemed like to be an eternity. She didn't care what direction she was running in, as long as it was putting distance between her and the horrifying image of her father's crushed skull and lifeless eyes. An hour and a half later, Valentine's legs finally gave out. She stumbled to the end of an abandoned alley and used the last of her strength to lean against the wall. She let her knees buckle under her and she slumped to the ground, allowing her traumatized mind to rest. Just as she was closing her eyes, she thought she saw a glimpse of a white skull perched on a pair of wide-angled shoulders peering at her from behind a trash can. Chapter 10. Desh wandered aimlessly for what felt like days. In reality, he had been walking for 20 minutes. His mind was still trying to absorb what had just happened 25 minutes ago. It was when he had slashed the Reaper's throat with his knife. Desh couldn't shake the empty feeling he experienced when the man's death assaulted his senses. He saw the surprise and shock in the soldier's eyes. He heard the disturbing and unsettling squelching and spurting noise as the blood ejected from his neck, spraying it as if it was under extreme pressure. Desh smelled the salty, coppery scent of blood mixed with sweat through his helmet's air filters. He felt the wet slap of warm blood hitting the exposed skin on his neck. All of these things added up to one experience that he would never forget, and would be something that would flash through his mind every time he took a life. As Desh was thinking, he heard the faint sound of labored breathing. Instantly alert, Desh located the source. It was coming from around the corner of the building he was walking by. He sprinted to the corner at a speed that would shame an Olympic runner. He peered around the corner just in time to see a girl stagger into an alleyway. She was visibly exhausted and appeared to be in mental shock, evidenced by her ghostly pallor, wide, panicked eyes, and trembling hands. She appeared to be completely winded, as if she had been running for hours. Her legs were shaking and she was on the point of collapse. Desh creeped up to the alley mouth and crouched behind an aluminum trash can. He peeked over the top and saw the girl slouched and crumpled in the far left corner of the dead-end alley. Just before she passed out from exhaustion, her half-closed eyes fixated on him. Desh's muscles tensed, then relaxed as he realized that the girl wasn't a threat in her current state. The girl fell asleep, chest rising and falling steadily, as if she had never exerted herself. She practices meditative breathing in her sleep, Desh noted. He approached her slowly, alert for tricks. He crouched in front of her, balancing on the balls of his feet. Looking her over, he observed quite a few things. She had straight, raven hair that went down below her shoulders. She had a petite nose, which flared with each breath. A small mouth and ears completed her heart-shaped face. She was slim in stature, and her skin was pale. Although she was breathing steadily, and the weather was warm, her extremities were quivering from the remnants of an adrenaline rush. It was then that the pieces fell together. The invasion, the drop pods, and of course the 85% accuracy variable of the pod launcher. She was running from the occupants of an off-target drop pod. Desh regretted ditching his weapons. Desh made a snap decision. He got up, walked over to the trash can he hid behind before, and began rooting through it for anything heavy or sharp. After 2 feet of coffee grounds, dead mammals, and all manner of detritus, he gave up looking. Taking the lid off the can, Desh punctured a spot on the edge and began working it apart until it split down the middle. He tested the edge on his finger, and was pleased to see a thin line of red blossom across his fingertip. A further search of the can provided a ruined belt strap and some discarded plastic ties. After some clumsy fiddling, Desh had 2 half-moon-shaped blades attached to his forearms. He noted with dissatisfaction, however, that the only sharp edges were the points and the straight sides of the bisected trash can lid. This fact made the weapons totally useless for broad, sweeping slashes, and could only be effective at close-range vertical and horizontal chopping, raking, and stabbing. Desh inverted the weapons so that the straight edges were facing out. Satisfied with what he fabricated, Desh realized that the blades, being made of a relatively weak metal, would not last for more than a few minutes in a combat scenario. He would have to end the upcoming confrontation in as little time as possible. This would necessitate a sneak attack, and even then, it would have to be done in a way that would minimize stress on his weapons. After a moment's thought, Desh formulated an attack plan that had the lowest chance of failure that he could comprise. And not a moment too soon, he heard arguing in the distance and concluded that it must be the drop pod occupants. Desh quickly clambered up the alley's fire escape and waited. "I'm telling you, Marius, it was totally unnecessary for you to kill him. You were never this violent before the resistance juiced you." Computer specialist Holly Ringer was on a roll. Let's see him explain that away, she thought. Marius made a sound akin to a bull snorting. "That's just like you, Holly. The resistance gives me a gift and you call it a bane. I'm glad they did this to me. I feel I can actually do something for my planet." "Do you even know what you're fighting for, you big galoot?" Marius stayed silent. If anyone but Holly had said that, they would have had their neck wrung like a chicken. "Both of you, shut your traps. We're supposed to be searching for that girl that bolted. She might have some information on General Brooke that her old man didn't." All eyes were suddenly on sniper Tamara Gutierrez. She rarely spoke to anyone, and even then she didn't say more than a few words. This little speech was monumental. "Damn, girl, I didn't know you had it in you." This time it was demolitions expert Amy White's turn to speak up. Tamara gave Amy a withering look and abruptly dropped a few paces behind the group, signifying that her contributions to this particular conversation were at an end. "Aw, now you've gone and hurt her little feelings, Amy. She isn't going to talk to you for days now." The ever-sarcastic ranger Amanda Dubois couldn't resist her trademark acid comment. Suddenly Marius spoke. "Hey, I figured out what we're fighting for." All 4 of the girls spoke in unison. "Nobody cares, Marius." "What's the matter, Mary? Train of thought still boarding at the station?" Amy said. "No, I just needed some time to think it over, that's all," Marius replied defensively. "Sure," said Amanda. "With a thought process like that, I'm surprised that you're not already the head of Mensa." "What's Mensa?" "Exactly my point." The group was approaching an alleyway. Amanda was on point, followed by Marius, Tamara, Amy, and finally Holly. Amanda suddenly held up a fist, signaling for them to stop. "What's the matter, Dubois?" Amy whispered. "I'm not sure, but I think I heard it. The next sound she made was a gurgling sound as 2 sharp blades pierced either side of her neck. Attached to those blades was a man wearing a gray jumpsuit and a hockey mask. Planting his foot between Amanda's shoulder blades, the man pushed and wrenched the blades out of her neck, then turned on Marius, who managed to say, "Oh shit," before being promptly executed by a spinning slash to the throat. While all of this was happening, Tamara was calmly aiming down the sight of her sniper rifle at the man in the hockey mask. After he had finished off Marius, he turned to Tamara, realizing that he was staring down the barrel of a high-powered rifle. Tamara squeezed the trigger, but he was already closing the 5-yard gap between them with ungodly speed. By the time the gun went off, Tamara was looking at her own intestines falling out of her and piling on the ground like a coil of red rope. Holly simply stood there, mouth open wide in shock, as her entire squad was decimated in a matter of seconds. When the man in the hockey mask was done with Tamara, he walked slowly up to Holly. Their eyes locked, and what Holly saw in those eyes made her gasp in fright. She saw pain, unimaginable pain. Those eyes were the eyes of someone who was in the middle of being tortured. Those eyes were the last thing she saw in this world. The eyes of a tortured, cold-blooded killer. Chapter 10. Desh stood in the alleyway amidst the carnage he had wrought. Blood splattered across the wall, a woman lying face down in her own entrails, and the coup de grace of this morbid display of violence, the most recent victim, whose brain was pierced but via her eyeballs. Blood was still leaking from her eye sockets at a steady rate, indicating that her heart was still beating. A cold chill washed over Desh as he remembered something crucial. There were 5 people in this unit. He killed 4. Desh scolded himself for not keeping count. She could be anywhere by now. She might call for backup. Hey, fucktard. Desh slowly turned and saw the 5th squad member at the mouth of the alley, a pistol in her hand, and aimed at his chest. For some sick reason, Desh felt the desire to instill a little fear into this woman's heart. She was going to pay for giving him the slip. Desh began to walk towards the woman slowly and methodically. He heard a gunshot and felt as though he was punched in the chest. Undeterred, he continued walking forward without so much as flinching. The resolve in the woman's eyes vanished and was immediately replaced with panic. 4 more shots, each no more effective than the first. Die, fucker, die! Each syllable punctuated by a gunshot. Desh still did not stop. The woman screamed with hysterical rage and threw the gun at Desh, who deftly caught it, flipped it 360 degrees, and used its final bullet to shoot out the woman's kneecap. She screamed in pain and dropped to one knee, panting heavily. Amy looked up at the figure looming over her. He studied her, like a child who just tore the wings off a butterfly. "Just kill me already, you stupid shit!" Amy spat. "No, you're going to answer some questions first." The man's voice was flat, emotionless, and raspy. It sent a chill down Amy's spine. "You're gonna kill me anyway, so why should I tell you anything?" The man tilted his head as if considering this question. "I can save you a lot of pain if you cooperate," he said. "So you'll just kill me quicker if I talk? Wow, you're a real pal." "I am not your friend. Now talk. Tell me what you want with that girl over there. Why is she so important?" Amy spat on the ground in front of him. "Fuck you." The man reached down and grabbed her wounded knee and squeezed. White hot lances of pain shot through Amy's body. She screamed in agony. Just when she thought she could take no more, the pain stopped. "Why is the girl so important?" he asked again. "We're looking for someone she knows. We were hoping she might have some insight as to where that person is." Amy had given up. She didn't care anymore. Not about the resistance, not about the mission, none of it. She just wanted to die. She couldn't take any more pain. She was no hero. "Who are you looking for?" "General Elizabeth Brooke." "Why?" "She has the launch codes to Earth's entire nuclear arsenal. If Mars controls those codes, they control the world." "How many drop pods were deployed?" This question was punctuated with another squeeze of Amy's wounded knee. When the pain had subsided, Amy managed to gasp, 5 dozen. "Were all of the drop pods like yours, 1 heavy and 4 specialists?" Another squeeze. More pain. "No. Some had all heavies, some had all specialists. Only a few were like ours." Amy had to take a few moments to gather herself after the mention of her dead squad mates. They were like family to her, and this bastard wipes them out in a matter of seconds.